But first, he signed up for a fisherman's job, but ended up being sold into slavery. After missing for 22 years, Mint Nyang has finally returned home to Burma. Well, like him, an estimated 200,000 migrants, most of them illegal, work in Southeast Asian waters. Well, their catch ends up in the U.S., Europe, and Japan. France 24's Aurore Dupree has the story.
She thought she'd seen a ghost. Kintan embraces her son for the first time in 22 years. Mint Nyang went missing when he was 18, tricked into slavery on a Thai fishing boat. As they return home with his sister, emotions are too strong to bear.
I'm thrilled to see my mum and my siblings again. I'm so happy, it's unbelievable. In the future, I'll never go anywhere again. I'll work in Burma only, and I swear I'll die here.
Mint tells his family about his ordeal. He says he was stranded in Indonesian waters where a Thai captain forced him and dozens of others to work non-stop, beating them up, sometimes to death. Mint says many fellow fishermen committed suicide as they saw no other way out. The only thing that's kept him alive was hope to see his mother again.
The waves hit, the wind blew, our clothes got wet, then they dried. But we just kept on wearing them. We got cold, we had fever. They didn't feed us or give us water regularly. We couldn't sleep at night, and we weren't allowed to take a break during the day.
Like him, an estimated 200,000 migrants work in Southeast Asia's waters, providing fish to supermarkets worldwide, including in the US and Europe. Modern-day slavery that's been ongoing for decades.
One day I saw the captain coming out from the boat, so I threw myself to the floor, kneeled and begged him to let me go home. I said I didn't want any money, I just wanted to go back home. Then the guys from the port chained my hands and put me out in the rain.
Mint escaped thanks to the help of foreign journalists. At 40 years old, he now has to adapt to his new life in Burma. During his captivity, his country started moving away from dictatorship towards democracy. Mint has a lot to catch up on. After 2 decades away, his top priority, to spend some quality time with his family.
Well, now, it's been 65 years since the start of the Korean War. The 3-year conflict left some 5 million soldiers and civilians dead. Well, the Korean peninsula remains bitterly divided today. And after decades of official silence, South Korea is beginning to compensate the victims of landmines. Where they're a deadly and dangerous enduring legacy of the Korean War and its Cold War aftermath.
Lim Duk-sung was just 16 when he lost his right foot. He'd been playing by a river near his home when he stepped on an unmarked landmine.
While I was running, all I could feel was myself blasting into the sky. After I dropped to the ground, I could smell the chemicals from the landmine.
Just one of the hundreds of thousands of anti-personnel mines littering the border area between North and South Korea. They were first planted there during the Korean conflict in the early 1950s. Many more were airdropped into the same zone during the 1960s. The Cold War was making the US and South Korea fearful of an infiltration attempt by the communist North. By the end of the decade, villages near the border were reopened and former residents returned, but only once they'd signed a waiver clearing the military of any responsibility for accidents that might happen in the area. And these accidents keep on happening. Over the years, mudslides and heavy rains have shifted unexploded mines from their demarcated positions. The victims tend to be local farmers and their families who can ill afford the medical treatment. Lim had to have more than one operation. These left him with nothing below the knee and his family bankrupt. That was 37 years ago, but Lim still suffers from depression. Now, 65 years after the start of the Korean conflict, South Korea's government has passed a law offering financial compensation for people like Lim. Too late, says one lawmaker, for a country that's donated millions of dollars over the last 20 years to help landmine victims in other countries.
We were able to pass the law because of international support from the UN, which pointed out that our own citizens hadn't been compensated all these years.
South Korea stopped laying new mines in 2000, but, along with the US, refuses to sign the Ottawa Treaty, which would ban their use.
Traditionally in China, aging parents live with their children, but those traditions, well, they're breaking down due to changing lifestyles and the consequences of the one-child policy. Well, China now faces a major challenge: how to take care of a rapidly aging population. Elderly people who've lost their one and only child now find themselves alone. Pierre-Philippe Berson and Rachel Rubel report.
Mr. Sun has lived alone for years. He's divorced from his wife and lost his son, Yinmin, at the age of 20 to cancer in 2002. Mr. Sun has no other son. Yinmin was his only child.
My kid is dead, and I know I won't have any descendants.
Mr. Sun used to work as a railway worker, but now he's retired. He earns a monthly pension of 360 euros. It's a small income in China where medical care is very basic, and seeing the doctor is still very expensive for lower-class people like Mr. Sun.
I had to pay for my son's hospital stay. I sold my house, and when he died, I became homeless, before having enough money to find this apartment. Now I suffer from skin disease, and I cannot afford the treatments. I have no child or relatives to help me.
Mr. Sun relied on his son to take care of him in his later years. Now he lives alone, and he is angry with authorities. He's launched several petitions to ask for financial assistance. So far, he's gotten no answer.
In the 80s, at the beginning of the one-child policy, nobody expected the problems that old people are facing today. At that time, the government said, "Don't worry, we will help you in your old days." It's not true. Nobody is helping us.
The social discontent is growing. In May, 600 parents protested in Beijing in front of the Family Planning Center, the administration in charge of the one-child policy. All of them have lost a son or a daughter. They want help from authorities. Since that measure was implemented in 1979, 10 million families have lost their only child. Among them, Mr. and Mrs. Chen. Their son died during an earthquake 7 years ago.
We wanted to have another child. We went to several hospitals. We met many doctors. But finally, it didn't work out. I was too old to get pregnant again.
Today, their worker pension is not enough to make ends meet. They're almost 60 years old, and they have to go to work again in this street restaurant in Chengdu in central China.
When he was alive, my son used to tell me, "Don't worry, Mama. I'll help you with Daddy. It'll be my turn to give you some money."
Elderly people are the collateral victims of the one-child policy. One of the symptoms of this problem, in China, the suicide rate in the elderly is among the highest in the world.
Of the 10 million parents who lost their only child, many of them committed suicide. There are many reasons for that. First, the emotional shock, and then some economic reasons. The financial aspect is not that big, the emotional factor is bigger. Having no descendants affects you strongly. This is a new phenomenon, and we're just starting to study it.
The Chinese population is getting older very fast. By 2050, China will have 473 million senior citizens, 1/3 of its total population.
Well, finally, India's Maharajas are no strangers to luxury, and many have a passion for car collecting. Well, vintage cars, even those that are in bad shape, well, they're considered part of the royal heritage. Take a look.
Udaipur, one of the most romantic spots in India. Maharajas from the Mewar dynasty have been living here for the past 500 years. And from one generation to the next, Maharaja's passion is to collect vintage cars.
We're going to Garden Hotel, see some cars and come back.
No, I don't want to.
Okay.
For Arvind Singh Mewar, vintage cars, even those that are in a bad shape, are part of the royal heritage.
It's a 1939 Cadillac. It came as part of my mother's wedding dowry.
From time to time, the Maharaja takes a ride, showing off his favorite car across what used to be his ancestors' land.
This is Lake Pichola, and at the middle of the lake is the Lake Palace Hotel.
The five-star floating palace no longer belongs to the Mewar family. But Arvind Singh says that even in difficult economic times, he'll never sell his car collection, which he considers the gem of the kingdom. He's decided to turn his garage into a car museum, charging tourists €4 a visit.
This is a Rolls Royce which my father used for transporting his cricket team.
Indians are passionate about cars, despite rough roads and bad traffic. Younger generations, however, are more keen on racing cars. And these businessmen from Mumbai are proud to display their brand new toys. An expensive hobby that many people can't afford, but that's perhaps something everyone here dreams about.